Aloha and welcome. I'm Carlos Juarez, your host here on Global Connections, part of the ThinkTech Hawaii series. And of course, what we're doing here is helping raise public awareness of a broad range of issues. We look at technology, energy, diversification, globalism, and of course, in Global Connections in particular, we like to both bring the world to Hawaii, but we also bring Hawaii to the world. We look at both angles. Today, I've got a great guest joining us for a wonderful conversation. I'm joined today by Jerry Agrusa. He's been a host in the past and certainly will help us understand a better look at the impact of the entertainment industry on tourism. A real interesting connection, of course, here in Hawaii, very important, but also in many parts of the world. So we're calling our show The Effect of Global Entertainment on Tourism. And joining me today, Jerry Agrusa. Jerry, thanks for joining us here on Global Connections once again.
Well, thank you, Carlos, for having me.
Great to see you, and I know, one of the things we're going to turn to is you're obviously, just to remind some of our listeners, what you do. You're obviously a professor of hospitality
management. We're called Hospitality and Tourism Management now in the College of Business at Hawaii Pacific University.
Yes. Yep. And basically, this is important because it's our number one industry in Hawaii, and it helps bring the world to us here on many levels.
We do very well with that. This year's been a record year. Last year, when you were kind enough to have me as your guest, we made a prediction that hotels will be full, and they're at record levels right now, and they're getting record hotel rates. Actually, I'm worried that it might be a little too high. They're charging a little bit too much money, but the people are coming, so they can keep charging.
Yeah, and yet this tourism, of course, it presents some challenges on some level. We're going to see even something looking at the impact of the entertainment industry, more specifically, whether it's movie industries or things like that, television. And so maybe just another is that you've come back this past summer. You've had opportunity to present some of your ongoing research, and you've got some new projects in the pipeline. So give us a quick snapshot. What's on your plate?
Okay, well, right now we started a new project. I started a project with two other faculty members at HPU. Taking the lead is actually Brian Metcalf. He's a psychology professor, and he and his wife, Catherine Linus, and we're actually looking at the effects of a new animated film by Disney called Frozen.
Very popular.
It's the highest grossing animated film of all time, Amazing. Over $1 billion. And what we're doing is we're looking at the effects of that on Norway tourism, as well as what's happened is the Disney, who produced it now wants to change part of Epcot's Norway Pavilion and make it partly into Frozen because of the amount of popularity and the amount of people that are trying to come. And some of the things that we found in our research is that people wait 3-4 hours for the signatures of the characters from that movie. And now there's because of social media, there's some huge complaints that there's not enough merchandise from the Frozen. People going to stores and it's sold out. And actually at Disney parks, as well as some other stores, they limit the number of items you can buy that is from Frozen. You can buy Mickey, 10 of those, but from Frozen you can only buy 2 or 3.
It almost increases the
yes.
value.
It reminds you of the old Cabbage Patch dolls back in the day.
Oh boy! Well, and we'll speak more about this. The case of Norway, of course, which people are not always aware, but it has important links with Hawaii. Way back in the days, you had whalers that used to come here. Today, it's large hordes of students that come out.
That's right.
And actually, as it happens, Hawaii brings the largest number of Norwegian students to HPU. But let's maybe first get a quick snapshot, because here in Hawaii, of course, we've had a lot of impact. Well, we've had tourism as an important player, but even more recently, we've now got coming up on the 5th season of the television show Hawaii Five-0. And maybe share a little bit of the context of how, whether it's television or entertainment more generally, what impact it has here on tourism.
Well, what happened is, fortunately, when we first started to do the big push of tourism in Hawaii, tourism in Hawaii really started to grow in the 60s and 70s. And there was a number of reasons for that. One of the biggest reasons was that we had a lot of servicemen that were coming through here on their way to Vietnam during the Vietnam conflict, but also the change of transportation. We went to the jet engine, the airline jet engine, and they were able to bring them quickly. So that was one of the biggest positives. Also, as the world, we started to move. When you left from Japan to go to Los Angeles, you had to stop and refuel in Hawaii. So people got off the plane. If you come into Hawaii, you're going to get off the plane for a day or two. That's just how it went. And same with Australia going to the West Coast. So that was one of the ways we increased. But also, with people knowing about it. Now, we did have movies, 100 years of film. This year was the 100th year of film in Hawaii. So there's been movies made here for 100 years. Now, the beginning movies were not always great for Hawaii, because we had Bing Crosby and John Wayne, and they showed some things that maybe weren't true Hawaii. And a lot of times when people see a movie or a TV show, that's the image of the place. So they think that that's what they're going to
come here and do what
right.
Bing Crosby did. Or
Right,
what John
right.
Wayne
And they
did.
expect to come here and think that we live in bamboo huts and people walk around with grass skirts. They truly believe this. They truly believe this. And in those first movies that went out, they didn't show the true Hawaiian culture. Even Elvis. When Elvis came and did Blue Hawaiian and so on, he had it that everything was rock and roll, and it didn't show the true Hawaiian cultural of the music. So a different perception. And what happened was the tourists demanded to have what Elvis showed when they came in the 60s. So all the hotels started to change. Instead of having Hawaiian music, they had rock and roll music or that type of rock music. So we lost that for a while. Now you see it's coming back. But we lost that. And that was one of the challenges with how when we have a TV show or a movie, it turns a perception that might not be true. And then people expect that when they come. And you have to try to give the tourists what they expect because they're the one with the money.
And yet on another level too, especially whether it's talking about cultural things here, it's so critical for us to make sure that they both value and understand the native culture that we have.
The Hawaiian culture.
And we see more of that reflected in recent films and even television shows. And of course the classic Hawaii Five-0 is what was brought onto our, late 69 is when it began.
68, yeah.
68, 69, the initial show that lasted many years. Now we're going into the 5th year of the second version, which has now been
very successful,
again, shaping a lot of the perception and images of Hawaii.
Right, and we'll show you some things here. But one of the things about the Hawaii Five-0, that's what put us on the map because it was a weekly television show. And when you have that weekly television show, the audience sees it week after week after week. When you go to a movie, a lot of times you'll see a movie once. And you have an image, but sometimes that image goes away. One of the great things, the first show of the first series of Hawaii Five-0 was 42 years to the day of the second series. And, it was September 19.
1968.
And then 2010.
The year
to the day. I think that was I found that out. I thought, pretty interesting. And one of the good things and the bad things about Hawaii Five-0 was when they first tried to do Hawaii Five-0, the tourism people, there wasn't a Hawaii Tourism Authority at the time, but there was other tourism factions that said, hey, we can't have this. Because what is Hawaii Five-0? It's a police drama. So to have a police drama, you have to have crime. And we didn't want people to think there was any crime in Hawaii. So what they did was they tried to block it. And fortunately, they didn't. And then the rest of the world got to see Hawaii Five-0. The repeats of the first series were running 30, 40 years and dubbed in many languages. So it did help bring exposure to the destination of Hawaii. And like you said earlier about the culture, we have to differentiate ourselves with a sea and sand destination by the culture because there are other beaches that are just like Hawaii, but we have
more than just the beach. We've
right.
got something that's
Correct.
Reflected in our culture and what it offers. The other, I'm just thinking as you were describing that, the new show that's out now, in some level it shows crime almost on a level that you don't...
that's good.
We have to stretch it a little farther. We have, we do have, of course, our share of crime. Like
but they go after the crimes that are just insane, like nuclear bomb and a state senator's daughter being kidnapped. So unless you're a state senator, and you don't have a daughter, you don't have to worry about that crime. And that's the good thing. That's the good thing. And one of the great things they do about the Hawaii Five-0 now is, as soon as the commercial ends, when they go back, they always have
beautiful pictures,
unbelievable images. And it's just amazing how when you see it, even when I see it here, I say, God, I'm so happy that I live here. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky.
And for the other ones, like, wow, they can go there. Now you have to balance that between, well, will I get shot by some terrorist there? But no, you're protected by Dano and his company.
Right, Dano does a good job with that, and so does McGarrett. And I think that what they did very well with that is, one of the things that the new Hawaii Five-0 show, there are 4 main characters, and 2 of them are actually Korean. So there's a huge following in Korea of the Hawaii Five-0 shows, and that's caused Korean. I think it has a significant increase in tourism from Korea. Part is due to the fact that we eliminated the visa, but I think that this brought exposure
certainly
to it.
Helps.
It sure did.
And puts it puts again the face of Asian Americans, as the first show did itself. It was one that you saw a different face of the television
of a leader,
actors.
of lead.
That's right. Very interesting. And now, as we'll continue this dialogue because it's one thing for us to just talk, about interesting shows, but as an academic who looks at these things with a little more both rigor and also understanding what are the impact, how does it affect tourism? I mean, these are the things that I'd like us to flush out a little more. And maybe beginning to tell us specifically, you've presented some recent research in Southeast Asia on touching on some related things. So tell us about that.
Well, one of the projects I was in Vietnam for the Asia Pacific Tourism Association meeting, and I had two major projects that we shared from Hawaii. Mm-hmm. One was on the development of the North Shore, actually, and the residents' perceptions there, and how that the new development, especially with Turtle Bay area, needs to take in consideration what the residents feel before they do the major development, because it's going to cause some pushback. Yeah. And number two is the one that we looked at social media. The effects of social media, which is again technology, on the hotel industry. What's happened is no longer does anybody just go on the web and look up the hotel. The first place they go,
some reviews. And,
you got it, TripAdvisor.
Yeah.
They go to TripAdvisor for the hotel, for the restaurant, for the restaurant, for any type of shows. They go right to that. Yeah. And what we found is that there's a number of Hawaii hotels, specifically Aston, that did a very good job. Not just when somebody has a complaint. It's who, and if you respond to the complaint, how quickly,
that's right.
And who are they? If they are the general manager, people say, oh, good, somebody cares.
Yes.
And you know what? We'll give them another try.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fascinating. Well, we'll continue this dialogue in a moment. We'll take a short break. We're joined today by Jerry Agrusa, who's a real eminent authority on these issues of tourism, hospitality management, and been here in Hawaii many years, so he has a keen understanding of what happens in the community, but then understanding the links with the entertainment, movies and television. So please join us as we continue our conversation. We'll be right back with more on the story.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
And aloha, welcome. We're back, we're live, we're ThinkTech, and this is the Global Connection Show, part of the ThinkTech broadcast series. I'm Carlos Juarez, your host, and I'm joined today by Jerry Agrusa, a good friend and colleague, and one of our foremost authorities here in Hawaii on the hospitality and tourism management. Well, we want to say industry, but really it's more, in your case, as an educator, somebody who does a lot of research and teaching about these things. Again, you give us a deeper knowledge than just the sort of, TripAdvisor sort of information. But you were just describing a bit of a project that you reported on. You did some presentations in Vietnam.
Correct, in Vietnam.
And so the other thing, again, we were just unraveling a little bit about the infamous show of Hawaii Five-0. And if our controller can give us our next slide right now, we'll have a picture here that shows us the classic Hawaii Five-0. This is a picture here, and so tell us a little bit more, Jerry, about, again, maybe how this is,
Well, what's happened is actually to this day, people actually call up and ask where the destination is that they've seen in the original Hawaii Five-0 from 40 years ago. It's amazing how many people still want to see this site or this location. Where's that hotel? Does that hotel still exist?
Yeah.
And the same thing now with the newer Hawaii Five-0.
Yeah.
But the older one, it seems that had more nostalgia, and people remember that, or they were here, and then they want to go back to see where it was. I went on that block, but I didn't see that location. Yep.
Fascinating. And again, this is something that has helped put Hawaii on the map and creates perceptions and interest. And, just in terms of its impact on tourism, I mean, what else could you add to that?
There's a number of shows that have been filmed here over the years that have brought strong. One of the biggest ones has a form of a cult following is actually the TV show Lost.
Of course, yeah.
And there's a number of tours here that go around. Voss Tours is a company that goes out and The gentleman started the company 6 years ago with one Hummer,
Yeah.
and now he's got 6.
So,
And they don't just go to see the sites of where Lost was filmed, but also go into the jungle and into the mountains and things
Yeah.
like that in a giant SUV, a Hummer
Yeah,
SUV. It's
yeah.
not just a SUV. And what one of the things is that those folks, I have a very good friend that was a Lost, one of the smartest people I know, and she actually was a Lost fanatic. So when the show was on, shh, quiet. You had to be quiet while the show was on. You want a drink? No, quiet. It was like that intense.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, reading on the blogs and all that.
Yeah.
So there's a number of people from around the world that come here just because of Lost.
Kind of like the Trekkies that
Yeah,
start
right.
having conferences.
Right, like
and
a
what
Trekkie
have
conference,
you.
but it's a Lost come see where it was
Reunion
filmed
here.
here.
Yes.
And when I spoke to a number of the workers from the tour companies, they said that huge amount from Canada, Australia, Spain, and parts of South
We're all
America.
unemployed in Spain, sitting around watching reruns.
And actually, one time I was in Abu Dhabi for Christmas. Right before Christmas, I had to do some work for the Tourism Authority. I trained them in Abu Dhabi. And I'm sitting there, and I put on the television after one of my lectures, and there's Lost, dubbed
In
in
Arabic,
in
yeah.
Arabic. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
This is the world we live in now,
It
where
really
so much
is.
of the impact of media all around, and television, movies, and the like. Now, tell us a little more about, again, we've obviously unraveled a little bit of Hawaii, but there are other parts of the world. I mean, Korea is another where we
Right.
have
Oh.
a huge industry of their soap operas that are so popular around the world.
That's correct. They have the K-dramas.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you know when something has made it big? When they have the videos sold at Costco.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If you go to Costco and they're selling that product, you know they made it
They
big
made it.
because Costco just moves so much
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
And when first time I went to Costco in Christmas time, I saw they had the sets of all the Korean soap operas, the K-dramas. And that was the first publication that we did about 2007 on the effects. What we did was we looked at the effects of a Korean soap opera called Winter Sonata, and the effects of Japanese tourists going to Korea, to the locations where this was filmed. And there were so many that they actually made it into a theme park,
Oh,
a
my
park
goodness,
where
yeah.
people to come. And they have package deals, like we have package deals for Vegas. They have package deals from Japan to Korea just to see the K-drama. And we have it here too in Hawaii. There's actually a Korean soap opera K-drama fan club with about 600 people in it. And we surveyed them a couple of years ago on another study that we did on the effects on the image of Korea from people that are in the K-drama that watch the Korean soap opera versus those that haven't, and how their image of Korea was before the soap opera or those that didn't watch it,
Yeah.
and how they got information about Korea. So the image of that country has changed dramatically because of that.
Yeah.
Another study we did was we actually looked at the effects of food. There was it was a K-drama on food. It was called The Little Princess when you translate it. And in that, it was a young lady that was inside a feudal system time, and she was working in there, and she used all these herbs to cook with to help people that were sick.
Yeah.
And then there's a huge push for people to learn how to do Korean cooking. And number of Korean restaurants we looked at that increased after this movie, this soap opera, were actually in Hong Kong and in Thailand, in Bangkok, dramatically, over 150% increase in
Korean food
in
and-
Korean
yeah,
food
yeah.
because we believe that was directly related to
and
that.
It's fascinating because obviously this is going on, and to what extent, because I know you must be familiar with this, I mean, let's say, tourism authorities in Korea or other related countries like that, do they actually try to harness this or try
Yes.
to, support it?
They actually, what they do is, what they did in Korea, they were smart. The government funded more research on foods and how to push it out. Same what they actually, the Japanese government tried to do that here. One of the things they were trying to do was, a few years ago, was to certify sushi, the true sushi, how it was made, and person had to be a certification. But we blocked it here. And now there's a big pushback because of the new health law that you have to wear
wearing
gloves, and the sushi
Yes,
guy
or-
can't feel the little
that's right.
bones in
I know
certain
in
fish.
California they've resisted
Yeah.
that and maybe
right, and we're having the
changed
same
laws.
thing here
That's
now.
Right.
I like gloves. The challenge with the gloves is that a person wearing gloves, they forget that they touched something dirty, and now they touch the food because they have the gloves on. That's
Interesting.
a negative.
Well,
but
it's
back
got-
to the Korean
yeah,
soap
yeah.
opera. That the Korean government
So the
actually
authorities
funded
are clearly,
foods
yeah.
and pushed, and they believe that because of the Korean food that was shown in a number of the soap operas, and how it's healthy and it's not as spicy, and it has actually some people believe part of kimchi has some medicinal purposes.
It
because
helps
of
for digestion and
helps with digestion and so on. That they actually pushing, so that then people might want to come back to see where it's made. Just like we had in Europe for a while, a number of places, for instance, in Bari, in Italy, where basil comes from. The original pesto sauce is from there. And we had some small tours of people to go cooking. But now you see, cooking's big.
That's right.
People want to learn.
Yeah, that's right.
Especially our age group.
Yeah, that's true. And, speaking about the Korean soap operas, I don't know if you've gotten familiar with this, but, the region that my heritage comes from in Latin America, Mexico, Venezuela, Argentina, these are places that are very, very big exporters of their own soap operas, the telenovelas.
Yes,
yes. And I've traveled a lot in Eastern Europe. These are places in Russia and Eastern Europe that are just so popular. They dub them into the local languages, but these are very, very dramatic. And unlike the American soaps that go on forever, these have very intense endings and, high drama,
and that's
drug trafficking and love triangles and the like.
The difference between one of the Latin soap operas are very, very passionate and very violent too.
Yes.
And but they have the ending. Korean soap operas, 68 episodes. That's it. And they'll show 2 episodes, for instance, on a Tuesday, and then 2 episodes on a Wednesday, and you have to wait back to next week, 2. So what happens is, it's coming to an end when it's the 50th episode. There's only 18 left, so it's coming to an end. Unlike as the world turns, when it go on for 40 or 50 years.
That's right.
And Susan Lucci never won an award for 45 years. She looks the same as she did when I was a kid. I remember being at my grandmother's house, and then 25 years later, I look. Is that the same person?
There,
She's still dating that guy.
That's right. The same dramas, but again, the Latin America ones I'm familiar with are high dramas, and not only that, but because maybe the class nature, they tend to usually profile very wealthy, elite sectors of society, and for some people it's like, a chance to look into the window of this world.
Of this world, right?
But they're so popular outside of the region; they're major exporting.
And the difference too is the Korean soap operas actually the original ones that they were exporting were very no sex, no violence. Especially violence between male and female. No hitting. None of this stuff. So they believe that the original, especially the ones that were going to the demographic of the people from Japan that were going to watch this video, the soap opera Winter Sonata, were female, ages 40 to 65. And what they believe is that the men were always very gentlemen, and not real cursing. And no violence and no sex. And you would say, soap opera, we hear sex, there's always messing around, with the gumare, as we say, in affairs, things like that. And that didn't have that. And that's what I think that one of the things that we found out, that's what some of the people wanted. They wanted to reminisce of the good old days.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, it really was. In the Korean soap opera, one of the other things that's different of both American and film is Korean film. You're not allowed to have product placement. Like, we can't have a bottle of Coca-Cola here.
Yeah.
We could have Coca-Cola, but it's got to be covered.
Yeah.
You cannot see that. Same with Samsung. Even though the people know that's a Samsung phone, they're not allowed to say that it's a Samsung phone. So they block that, and that's part of their the media rules in Korea. While in the United States, we actually pay big bucks to have a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi sitting here while we're here.
They'll help fund the
movie.
Yeah,
They'll help fund our TV show.
Fascinating. Well, as we continue our dialogue, we're going to, I want to, especially some of the ongoing work you have some projects coming in the pipeline. You briefly touched at the beginning about the initiative in Norway, which is touching on the success of the movie Frozen. Now, Frozen, I must confess, I'm one of the maybe small few who hasn't seen it yet, and I feel embarrassed to say that. But tell me briefly. I mean, is it?
Now it's on Stars, and it's on Netflix.
But how the Norway connection? I mean,
what they did was the animator, the gentleman who first wrote it, he actually went to a place called Gidden, a city in Norway, to get inspiration.
Yeah.
So it's not a true. When they changed the name when they made this animated film, and they but you could see that there's trolls and there's churches and there's.
So that was the inspiration.
That's
for
the
it, in
inspiration.
effect. Now,
So,
what I'd like to do is we'll come back in after a short break to continue that. You know, what is it that the Norwegians are doing? Because there's some interesting things happening, and your project is trying to tackle some of that. So we'll come back to continue this conversation. Join us in just a minute. I'm here today on our show Global Connections with Jerry Agrusa, who's an authority on hospitality, tourism management, and has some interesting research projects in the works. So we'll come to talk more about Frozen, about Norway, and about the impact of the entertainment industry on tourism. We'll be back on more in the show in just a minute.
Aloha, my name is Willow Chang Leon, and I host a show called The Art of Life. We air live every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. And what we do is basically we focus on individuals who create a unique sense of place for Hawaii. These are movers and shakers, artists, innovators. They are also traditionalists. They're all involved in the archival process, and they make this place a unique place, one that makes Hawaii a richer place to be. I hope you do join us, and certainly tell your friends about the show, whether they live here or they live abroad. It's a way to give back to our community. We're keeping it pono.
And we're back and we're live, and this is Global Connections, part of the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast series. Thank you for joining us. We're going to continue a great conversation. Jerry Agrusa joining us, and of course looking at some interesting things, the connection between entertainment industry, movies, film, and television shows, and tourism, because there is a clear link. We were just beginning to talk a little more about the case of this very big blockbuster film, Frozen, an animated film that's of course out these days. But let's turn in a moment to some of the images we've got right here, and this again looks at the movie industry and its impact on tourism.
well, as you see here in the first picture, this is actually Frozen Adventures Awaits. Actually, Disney has put it on their list of adventure tours. So Disney has their own, and same with a number of other tour companies in Norway, that you could come and see the places that you saw in it.
Yeah.
Now, Frozen was such a great success. It's an animated film, and Disney didn't expect it to be so big. I guess they projected somewhere around 200 million, and when it hit 400 million, they realized that there were a number of songs. So what they did was they had the movie, then they had the movie with the sing-along, where they put the words of all the songs when they played. So as people went back to see it again,
you could
to sing with the movie.
Yeah.
Now, it's projected more for younger people. I guess they would be considered children, somewhere between ages, I guess, 5 and 15. And lots of young ladies that want to sing with them, and then they know all the songs. My friends that have young females, young girls as daughters, tell me it's amazing. They know it all.
Yes.
Here's the second
So
slide.
we'll turn to the next picture here.
Now here are the characters, as you can see,
from the film,
from the movie, and these two are the two leads, the two young ladies, and they're the ones that are the singers, and they've done very well, animated. As well as with, they have a reel here, we'll show you here. Now here is Anna and Elsa are the two lead females, and this is people in Disney waiting for their autographs. So these young ladies that are dressed up like we have with Snow White and so on.
So these are
but they'll
characters,
wait hours,
Yeah.
while even Snow White you could go and see maybe 45-minute wait, 2 or 3 or 4 hours. And parents, now on social media, they have they're texting away, this is not good, we're waiting too long. And then, here's a picture from what Disney actually from the show, so you could see that it does look very similar to Norway.
Yeah.
Now, one of the negatives is that some of the destinations in Norway don't want any more tourists, and we're looking at that as well in our project. And this here, as you could see, these are hay bales up on a hillside of a little town called Flum.
Flum in Norway,
and they'll get 150,000 visitors a year from cruise ships, and there's only like 300 or 400 people that live there. So you'll have all these cruise ships come. Everyone will get off the boat, 1,000 people, and then they'll take pictures and they'll come back on the boat.
Wow.
And they are not happy with this. And we're actually looking at in our study that we're doing currently, is the effects of if this movie brings more people to Norway, do the people want that many more tourists? And we have a similar situation here on the North Shore.
Sure.
I mean, you have sometimes, once the big waves come,
It gets a little too crowded.
the roads are just too much traffic.
So again, this is in some ways the impact it has on local communities. It can be really a double-edged sword.
Right.
It is our important growth industry here, the number one, but it has some negative.
Right, and if you don't,
effects.
if you look, we've had a number of movies. We had Blue Crush, and then we had a couple of other Point Break that were filmed up on the North Shore there, and then people want to come see that. But if they want to come when all the waves are, and then we have all the major surfing competitions, and then you have all the normal tourists that are going up there, there's just no place to go. There's no place to park.
That's right. No, it does create that challenge, and I'm thinking of these small communities in Norway where they just want to be left alone.
Right,
and
they're
yet,
farming community. We're doing fine with our own milk and our own dairy and our own stuff, and we don't need all these tourists coming off asking if they could use the restroom because they have to go and there's no place to go. There's no public restrooms. They don't take into account that you have a ship that comes in with 1,000 or 2,000 people on it. Right now, my mom is actually on a cruise ship in Norway with her two sisters for the next 10 days looking at all the sites before it gets too cold over there.
And so this is a piece that you're working on now. You've got the other two
Correct.
colleagues helping you.
We have our other, like I said, Dr. Metcalf, he's taking the lead, and Dr. Catherine Linus. And actually, Dr. Linus is Norwegian, so she converted the survey into Norwegian.
Yeah.
So when we're surveying the Norwegian residents, it's in Norwegian.
Yeah.
And then folks that we're looking at getting their opinion that are travelers, we have it in English.
Yeah.
And we actually have, let me see.
A sample here.
Yeah, I have
See if we can take a look at this screenshot here.
yeah, we have
This is one of the questionnaire questions.
This is actually where the website is. It's on SurveyMonkey. And we're interested in knowing the thoughts of Norwegian tourism as a whole. We're looking at what people think about the animated movie of Frozen. And also if they should, that Norwegian pavilion at Epcot is going to change if they put in Frozen. Do people want this? And what are some of the effects to that? Because the Epcot was supposed to be on the original culture, not on animated.
The sort of Hollywood, manufactured version, of course. So it raises a lot of sensitive issues. Of
It
course.
does, because it would be like at Polynesian Cultural Center doing a thing on Lilo and Stitch.
Yes.
Lilo and Stitch was not. It is Hawaii. It did do some things correctly, but some things it didn't do correctly.
That's right.
I talked to a native Hawaiian yesterday who is very talked about the Lilo and Stitch, and they said the good thing was the word Ohana got out to the rest of the world. That people understand that Ohana means family.
That's right.
That's a positive of Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah. So it is, again, it's this double-edged sword. We like it. It's exciting. It's interesting. But there are some negative externalities, some impacts that sometimes may not always be as positive, or may change the perception or the image in a way that is not desirable.
Just like people who go to New York. You go to New York, most TV shows about New York are crime dramas, right? NYPD, Blues, Blue Bloods, all these things. So when you go to New York as a tourist, if you're not mugged, you're thinking, why not? Because they think that that's part of going to New York. Should be pickpocketed or mugged, just like in Rome. You should be pickpocketed. It's just what they're known for. And because that is the image that we put out in film or TV, people expect that.
That's right. And tell me, maybe speak a little bit about the process of the research that you do, because a lot of it is, trying to assess opinion, doing survey research and the like. And there must be some just puzzling challenges when you're dealing with either foreigners. I'm just thinking, often how you word things, or even how you build trust in somebody to answer a questionnaire.
That's the challenge. A lot of times people think you're trying to sell something to them. And what you really want to do is don't have any names and no emails. So I'm not going to chase you down afterwards. This is very important.
Quick, anonymous survey.
Right. And when you do surveys in other languages, you need to do, it's called a double back translation. So I write this, I give it to you, you do it, you translate it for me in Spanish. Then I get Jay, who's fluent in Spanish and English. He doesn't know you did it. He takes the Spanish version and translates it back into English. And then we take it and we translate it back into Spanish to make sure that they're all the same.
Quality assurance. And even
and
there,
clarity.
There's a lot of nuances and idioms, and if you're not familiar with that, it could really
Correct. So that's what we did here. We were very
Yeah.
fortunate. Catherine, and then we had someone else check Catherine's
Yeah,
translation.
yeah.
And then we do this all the time, especially with Japanese. I do most of my Japanese survey, when I survey Japanese tourists, always in Japanese, Chinese, always in Chinese, Koreans, always in Korean.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it makes them feel comfortable. They're willing
That's
to do
right,
that,
yeah.
number one. Number two is you tell them you're doing this for research purposes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what one of the things United try to get out there, that we're here, we're an academic, we're not here we're not getting paid for this, it's not part of a marketing scheme, we're doing
Yeah.
this. And then when we do it, once we have the research completed, we try to share the knowledge through academic peer-reviewed research journals. I did a paper a few years ago on how the media is a significant promotional tool in delivering marketing messages. And we looked at product placement in that, and how, just specifically cars. When the Cooper Mini came out, the Italian Job, that helped push that car.
That movie, in other
That
words,
movie pushed
promoted
that car out
yes.
there. It had, it was a bank robbery, and they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
going
yeah.
through the tunnels and all
Driving
that stuff.
over.
But that people were like, I want that car. It's little, but look how fast it can go,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so on.
that's
And the
right.
same thing when you have a James Bond movie. They always come up with something.
There's always a
they've got-
car that's part of
always
it,
a
of
car.
course.
BMW came out. Two
Yeah.
BMW models came out through that, and now the Aston Martin came back. Their brand
the
is
original
back,
British,
and now it's super high end. It's for those that, okay, you have the Jaguar, you have the Mercedes, you have the Beamer, I have the
Yeah,
Aston
it's
Martin.
kind of, if you have to ask the price for it, you
You're right,
don't
that's
just
right. You're,
say,
you're not a professor. You're not a professor at HBU anyway.
Very well. Well, it's a fascinating area, and of course one that both in because the entertainment is so, and in the media world we live in now, we're so inundated with it, and a movie like Frozen, you don't see it once, you see it many times. You get the DVD version, you have it,
They actually haven't sold a DVD version
Oh,
yet.
okay, maybe.
But it's on
Yeah.
on the Netflix, and it's on the Stars
That's
channel.
right, yeah.
But they have both versions. I said the original version and then the sing along.
Yeah,
So the lady who cuts my hair, she has a daughter that's 6. She says, we
Every
hear
song.
every song over and over
Yeah,
and
yeah.
over. It's like when Barney came out.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how Disney missed it. They didn't realize it, that it was going to be such a major hit. And they're jumping on it now. They're jumping on it now. And they're looking at where. Now, part of the thing, too, is will Epcot change? Epcot, out of all the Disney parks, Epcot is supposed to be educational. But
and you've got the country pavilions that try to
Right.
promote the image of that country.
true culture.
Yeah.
And then you have to see, are they going
Yes.
to change? What are they going to do? Right now, they're in talks with the Norwegian government, and one of the questions we ask in our survey is, should the Norwegian government pay with their tax dollars, the wealthiest country in the world per capita,
Yes, right.
or should they find corporate sponsors, because those oil companies doing pretty well,
Yeah, yeah.
or should we just let Disney do it and let them do what they do best, but then they might change
Yeah,
what the
they
culture
would-
is being, the
yeah,
images,
That's right.
and or just don't do anything. And then, because it's 25 years since they've updated that pavilion, and it was going down.
Yeah.
But now the kids want to run there. They want to see Frozen.
That's right.
They
No,
want to see
they have
Frozen.
the season. So what's fascinating, and I think relevant for us, is that you've got a connection, a link between this entertainment world and something like the image and sort of marketing that countries do to help promote tourism and or otherwise maybe even limit or shape the tourism that they get.
Right. I know. We paid many millions of dollars to Disney to put Lilo and Stitch here, to use it sad as it was Hawaii.
Yeah,
Or I don't know if it was the DBED or the Tourism Authority. One of those guys gave money to Disney, and we do that. And a lot of times people pay. For instance, Eat, Pray, Love, that movie that was with
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts. Yes,
uh-huh.
the Indonesian government, specifically Bali, paid money to make sure that final scene was in Bali. The challenge was that 2 weeks before the release of the movie, there was an independent film called The Kuta Cowboys, which was a movie on what happens is you have these outside tourists, females, ages between 30 and 50, who go to this place called Kuta, which is part of Bali, and they meet these young guys that are surf boys. They're called surf boys, cowboys. They teach you how to surf, but they'll actually be your escort for the next 2 weeks. And the independent film did, and they won #1. They won top prize, and it showed all 26 guys. interviewed him in depth. Yes, I give extra services for money, and this is how I support my family, and so on. The Balinese government, they went nuts. They arrested them.
Yeah, yeah.
So the
A little
movie,
too invasive.
the movie went and showed these guys' faces, and then the Indonesian government went and arrested all those guys. So, as researcher, and as this girl did this documentary, she actually put these guys in jeopardy, because going to Indonesian jail isn't like going to jail here. Yeah, it's a whole different ball of wax. And how that Eat, Pray, Love was supposed to be a big push for
promoting Bali in a more positive
as females,
way.
because there's a huge amount of females that are single, ages 30 to 50, that have money now, and they're traveling by themselves.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
traveling
yeah.
by themselves. And that Eat, Pray, Love, right? She went to eat in Italy, pray in India, and then to find love in Bali.
Bali, yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, Jerry, I want to thank you. It's been a great conversation. Again, understanding some of the nexus, the links between the entertainment industry, movies, films, and so on, and tourism, which is, again, a critical industry for us here, but in many other places. And it's just, valuable to share some of your ongoing research. As you continue this, we'll have you back for updates
Great.
on that. I want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us here today on Global Connections, as we do always every week here. Bringing you some informed opinion and perspective. Joined today by Jerry Agrusa, an eminent academic authority on tourism, hospitality management, and today a great conversation on the effects of global entertainment on tourism. Thank you for joining us here on Global Connections, part of the ThinkTech Hawaii series. We'll be back with more as we continue next week. Aloha.
Aloha.